Hi everyone, my name's Paul and I actually run a knife sharpening and laser engraving service, and I am going to be reviewing this knife by HOSHANO. Probably more qualified than most to do something like this because I do handle and sharpen thousands of knives per year. And I figured let's do some tests with this and kind of see where this knife falls. So this is a Santoku style knife. It claims to have a 15-degree angle, which is pretty common for a Japanese Santoku style knife. It has a 60 HRC. So HRC is the hardness of the steel. It's a carbon steel knife. 60 is pretty hard, which is good for Japanese knives. That will keep them sharp for a long period of time. The lower the hardness of a HRC on a knife, the softer the steel is, the harder the steel is, the higher it will keep that sharp edge longer. It can be a tad bit more difficult to sharpen than a softer steel. This knife claims to be made with German steel, which is nice, usually is one of the best, but there's quite a few good steels throughout the world. It is made in China, but they claim that it's made using techniques that Japanese knife makers use. So I figured we'd do a couple tests that I normally do to test the sharpness of knives and a couple different things that I like to show you. So first thing, this is a goniometer, which is a knife angle reader. So the first thing I'm going to do is see, does it actually have a 15-degree angle or very close to that 15-degree angle? Now this claims to have been hand sharpened, which is very interesting. You know, we might be able to tell that when we look at this angle. First thing we're looking for under here, and that's very interesting. The long strokes, those arched angles that are going on the far left and the far right, where that crosses is the angle of the knife. And then if you look real close into the zero, you're going to see there's some other red marks there. Now it's a little difficult for me to hold this and read it. So right about here, it's correct. And on the right hand side, I'm seeing 15 degrees, which is what they claim this is. So it's at the bottom where that you see that arch going down, that is just striking at 15 degrees. Now on the left hand side, I'm seeing more of around 18 degrees. And it looks like my battery's starting to die on my laser here. But that's what I'm seeing there. I'm seeing about 18 degrees. So I'm going to shut my laser off there. That is not uncommon. It is very common for a knife to not have exactly the same angles on each side, especially if it was actually hand sharpened. Now, the other interesting thing there, those really sharp, decisive lines that you could see there, as opposed to being like blurry, like in the middle where you could see where I told you the primary bevel was, that was kind of blurry. Those really sharp, almost hair-like looking arches tells me right off the bat that this knife is sharp. You only see that on sharp knives, so we know this is pretty sharp. So the next thing we're going to do is let's do what's called a best test. So a best test is a cutting test for a knife, and it will give it a score based on foot-pounds of pressure to cut a piece of filament line. And it's a pretty good indicator of how sharp a knife is. Now, it doesn't tell you absolutely everything about a knife, because keep in mind, we are testing one tiny little microscopic point on this entire blade. If you really wanted to, you could test the multiple spots to kind of see where it is, but that's usually not necessary. And on a brand new knife, I'm not really concerned about that at all, but I am curious to see where this will come in. The number means something to sharpeners. Anything around 100 is actually what we consider razor sharp. So that's a very good number to see. But with Japanese knives, I tend to like to see them pretty low. So let's do our first cut test here. 186. And that's a very respectable best tester score. You will see lower, you can see under hundreds, if a knife is really well sharpened, it can be quite low. But 186, that is a very very respectable score for a new knife. I feel great with that. That's very good. What I like to do next is I always use the same cut test media when I'm doing paper cut tests. So for me, it's always Uline catalogs. I've used that for years. And you get to know your paper that you use all the time because all papers are different. One of my favorite tests to do to see if a knife is extremely sharp is a push cut test through a page of paper. And I do this not even holding the paper. And if it will cut through that, then you know it is a very sharp knife. So let's see how this does on a push cut. Down here I have a rubber block just to protect the knife. So you see there, it cut the paper completely in half. So this knife is currently extremely sharp. So that's a very good sign. Then the other test I would normally do, but it's not even really necessary, would just be a cut test. And a lot of times when we as sharpeners do a test like this, I'm just looking to feel for any chips in that knife. This knife is extremely sharp and cutting extremely well. So that's great. Everything we're seeing there, very positive. The wood on the handle is beautiful. The steel looks nice. Now, I typically like to pick up knives that perform really well and are going to be very popular with my customers. I use them a lot for loaner knives. When people bring in their knives to my shop to be sharpened, a lot of times they want a loaner knife if they are bringing all their knives and they need something to cut with while they are getting their knife sharpened by me. And that's why I will buy knives like this. And I don't want super expensive knives, but I do want knives of good quality, because one thing that almost all my clients say, wow, the loaner knife I got was amazing. It was awesome. It was so sharp. Couldn't wait to get my knives back. So that's why I look for knives like this. It's a good quality knife. It's well built, well made. And I think for me, this is going to make an excellent knife for my shop. I think it's a great knife. I think you'll be extremely happy with it. And it's at a really nice, affordable price range for a knife of this style. It does come in a nice box, which is nice to see. And this would make a really nice gift for someone who is just, maybe starting out getting on their own for the first time, and you want to get them a very decent, very nice kitchen knife, but maybe not so much an extremely expensive $200 or $300 kitchen knife. This would be a great starter knife for somebody just starting out. That's my review of the HOSHANO Santoku. Have a great day, everyone.
Here's a quick overview of the HOSHANO knife block and knife set. So far I've found these to be really good quality knives. It does come with good steel. The steak knives are super sharp. Scissors, I really like the easy open tab. And I'm able to use, everything from cutting chicken, which you can see the groove is for, to even cutting open macaroni and cheese bags. I mean, it's very useful. From the back, you can see it's a very high quality wood. I did replace the Santo knife with my own because it's a nice Damascus steel knife and I really like it. But as you can see, it really matches the knife block well and goes in the slot. Nothing against theirs, but mine cost about as much as this entire knife block. All in all, lots of good utility knives. Surprisingly, the bread knife, which is usually the dullest of the group, is very sharp in this as well. Great utility, good replacement for my existing block.
Harder scratches. So just a heads up for you guys if you're purchasing these. Clean immediately afterwards and maybe a microfiber rag